Welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report. Today I'm joined by Aron van Ammers, who is CTO of Outlier Ventures. We talk about Outlier Ventures' new Web3 Accelerator program focusing on startups in Latin America. All right, welcome back to another episode of Brazil Crypto Report. I'm your host, Aaron Stanley, and today I'm joined by Aron van Ammers, who's CTO of Outlier Ventures. Aron, it's great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're my first guest who shares my first name, so that's pretty exciting. Spelled slightly
Fortunately,
differently.
It's just you and me on the conversation. Otherwise, it might get confusing. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyways, really excited to have you on the show here. You guys are doing some awesome stuff at Outlier Ventures, doing some work in Latin America now, which is really exciting. So we'll dive into that. But first, would love for you to give us some background on yourself and the firm.
For Outlier was founded in 2014 by Jamie Burke. I joined him as a founding partner. Me from a more technical background, him from a more commercial digital startup background. And both of us were really fascinated with blockchain. Both of us just discovered Bitcoin and the altcoins that were happening at that point, and this vibe of everything is possible. Blockchain is going to change the world, and a million possibilities. And for me, that was the first path on an entrepreneurial path. The first step on an entrepreneurial path for Jamie, it was several startup exits that he had done, and I was just fascinated by it from a technological and social perspective. That now you have true ownership, you have digital ownership, you have systems that are really co-operated. It's not a business offering everything to people, to their users, but it's people running Bitcoin nodes, and then suddenly you have this very hard digital assets and cryptography, everybody being able to own their own keys. So yeah, really fascinated by the use cases that were possible, and basically we started jointly exploring that in a hands-on way by building some use cases early on, because there wasn't too much to invest in yet. By researching, by meeting people, seeing like what are people building, what startups are even being built in this ecosystem. And this was before even something like Ethereum. That was Ethereum was in the envisioning stages. There was no live mainnet. There was Bitcoin and some colored coins and those kind of things as the tools for people to build with. So what you saw is that there were a lot of ideas, a lot of potential, but not an awful lot of mature technology to actually build those things with. So through the years, people, you saw startups, but on one hand starting with use cases and then finding out, well, what I want to build isn't possible. I need this infrastructure, and then pivoting to start building that infrastructure. Through the years, more and more became possible. So as Outlier Ventures, it also became possible to become more of a strategic advisor, an investor in startups, rather than us incubating our ideas and hoping that others would join them as as team or as co-investor or those kind of things. And so starting point 2014, this was throughout 2016, 17, 18, of course ups and downs in the market, and further interest into what then became the partnership, where in 2019 we then, based on everything that we had done in that period, all the learnings, all the network building, all the teams that we had worked with in a very hands-on, close knit fashion, sort of took all of that learning and the team and productized it more in an accelerator format, because that was the way where you can, now we can work with 6, 8, 10 startups in a cohort at a time and really have them, in a very short period, in a packed period of time, jointly, benefit from the learning, help them get from this early stage of, we have a business, we have a couple of founders, we have some early product, but we have all of these gaps, we miss the connections to being a really investable business, and help them get to close rounds, to get to go to market or whatever is needed in this very short accelerator period. And that's what we've done in 2019, scaled that up And of course, we can talk a bit more about how and what there. But that's the history in a nutshell. For myself, I come from a technology software engineering background. I've been various businesses, large and small, quite a few startups where I've built software from web front and back ends and enterprise systems. So really, varying types of software and types of teams. And now being able to leverage that in working with all of those early stage teams that we are working with, who are in either before that or during that period, or in a scale up phase.
Well, thanks for that overview. And I've been following Outlier Ventures probably since about maybe 2017 or 2018. I've kind of been following loosely. There wasn't that was back in the day when there was fewer crypto funds floating around. It feels like everybody today has their own crypto fund now, right? But back in the day, it was a little fewer and far between, right? But you guys have definitely been there through through all the ups and the downs, and it's pretty exciting. And so maybe let's talk a bit more about the accelerators themselves, and maybe talk about how you gave some background about how you arrived at this model of doing these in the first place, but maybe talk about the nuts and bolts of how these actually work. And how operationally, how does it work? Like what's kind of the process? What does that sausage making process look like?
Absolutely. So we all of our accelerator programs are fully remote. That's bar the exception of the very first edition that we did in 2019, which was pre-COVID. But basically, COVID was the blessing in disguise. In now we were forced to do things remotely, and that made it possible to do it remotely because everything went remote in any way. So they are fully remote. They're 12 to 13 week programs, similar to what you would see in other accelerators in duration. Very intensive. One thing that we make founders very much aware of when they apply and when they we do select them to join one of them is now be aware this is a very much full-time or full-time plus engagement. This is intense, guys. Guys and girls, be prepared. If you're not prepared for that, then you're not going to be able to get the benefit out of it also. So we start off with very heavy mentor-focused period of about 2 weeks. Teams pitch, so many times to different mentors from different backgrounds, and get feedback. Try to take that in right away, but usually, a lot of it takes a bit to further down to take it to the pitch. We work with our internal team of over 60 people, with expert teams in various domains. So we have with legal, marketing, finance, and structuring. Of course, token economies, token engineering for any teams that are looking to create a tokenized system at some point, or introduce a token into their offering at some point. Product and engineering, which is under my purview, where we look at the
Brazil Crypto Report is presented by Kaleido. Kaleido is the most trusted digital assets and blockchain company by enterprises. Their product suite is the ultimate business blockchain cloud and is rated #1 for tokenization and #1 for blockchain as a service. Built by veterans of IBM Blockchain and Consensus, the Kaleido platform combines turnkey functionality with enterprise-grade security and scalability to power your application. Learn more and try it for free at kaleido.io.
The nuts and bolts of the technology itself, and how that ties into their wider vision. How can they make it scalable, and also what are good trade-offs on the way there to make, and scaling engineering team and such. Community building, of course. I mean, it's tied into marketing, but it's a very specific type of discipline within there. So each of those teams work with them through a structured program. Teams have hard OKRs and goals to go throughout the program, both on a week by week basis and towards the end of the program. Now, one of the goals often is closing some investment rounds. For many teams, like some of them don't have, they might have the luxury to already have had closed a round, or are able to close a round even during the program. But usually closing a round and getting the right introductions to the right investors that are a good fit for them is one of the more important goals. But from our side, we want to make sure that they are really as ready as possible for those right interactions. Right? It's if we would just come and say, okay, this team, they have applied, they have a pitch deck, we've seen their pitch 3 times. Now we can introduce them to investors. Like that's not value add, right? That wouldn't be value add from our side. We want to, really almost take the pitch bits apart to pieces and build it from the ground up. Look like how does this really come together, and how like where is the value? What would you do with that money? How are you? Where's your product at? Would you need? How are you going to get the right adoption numbers so that certain investors are more confident, more comfortable to invest? Really get them to that level of readiness, and then go towards helping them get funding.
And I love these types of programs. I just think the idea is so cool because you do have a lot of people with like really good ideas, or like teams that have really good ideas. Maybe they've built out like a small proof of concept, but they're like the task of actually scaling that and creating, going to market and trying to raise funds and all these things requires, oftentimes a lot of different skills that maybe that founding team doesn't necessarily have, whether it's like legal and like HR and finance and all these kind of things that, if you're really interested in those things, you're probably not going to be like a startup founder, So that's not, it's kind of like not really the same. There's not like a whole lot of overlap in those skill sets necessarily. So I think that's really cool that you guys are able to provide like all those different types of services, and those types of mentor, like kind of, mentorship roles and things of that nature, like help with fundraising, practicing your pitch, practicing, finding investors, soliciting investors, finding product market fit, building your community, all that kind of stuff. Maybe talk a bit more about like what happens when a team leaves the accelerator. Like what's sort of like the range of outcomes that you guys usually see here, maybe from maybe like an average outcome to maybe an outlier, like above average, edge case outcome.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so the program ends with a demo day and an online virtual demo day, sometimes split into two because of time zones, but gets really there then pitch that has been polished, and the end result, if you will, of the accelerator, in the eyes of as many relevant investors as possible. And there's a follow-up period for our side where we help them get those right contacts and handle those conversations well. From a perspective of like where did it go? What's an outlier? What's success? What's expected? We see the large majority of those teams indeed closing the amount of funding that they need. They as they've worked on their go to market, and they've worked on getting early clients on, if they're more client serving business, or if they're looking towards building a Web3 protocol and getting early adoption from developers. That's the time where they are really able to dig into those and do their do pilot programs or get their test nets really fleshed out. Because during the program, like a lot of the energy is spent on the contacts and the process and the thinking, whereas the actual hard work there gets a bit more to happen after the program itself, continued work. From our side, we do a later stage program as well called Ascent, which is really focused on token launches. So those teams that are at the point where, hey, now we're 3 to 4 months out of an actual token launch, and we are ready for that in that aspect. That's where we can work them with them in another program called Ascent to really get them to that successful token launch, where very specific, a lot of specifics come in that regard. And to contrast that for Basecamp, for accelerators, the stage where teams come in, they are in most cases they are not really ready to launch a token. Even some that are preparing for it, we then look through and hold them against the criteria that we have for Basecamp entrance, and then even compare that to what we have for Accent entrance. Well, yes, okay, you might be on these dimensions, you're quite there, you have product, but you have zero community, or you have community and you have traction on the socials, but actually your tech isn't there. Or we want to make sure that in each of those dimensions they have a decent good level to go to market, because otherwise it's very unlikely to be successful and sustainable.
And then for these Basecamp accelerator cohorts that you do, how do you decide what is the particular focus of each one? Like I know you guys have done like tokenization, RWA cohorts. If I recall correctly, you did like a Metaverse cohort a couple of years ago, and there are probably a bunch of others that I can't recall off the top of my head. But I know how do you guys decide like for this cohort we're going to focus on this particular area?
Yeah, it's a good question. And to give a bit more context there, like the summary is a mix of quite a few factors. One being market sentiment, and like what are themes that people are actually that people find relevant, that are up and coming. We, as an accelerator, we want to be positioned in a point where at the end of that accelerator program, which might be probably from the moment that we actually establish it, 6 months out or even 8 months out, at the end of that they are relevant, right? That they have teams that are working on things that the market finds important. So we do a lot of work to sort of map that out, to find on a continuous basis to see what are the upcoming trends, what is growing, and that we do that internally. But we do it also externally, where we have calls for builders as an application format, where we say, look, we don't have a focused accelerator yet on this particular theme, but if you're building in this theme, if you're building in social fi, if you're building in gaming, if you're building in such and such, do apply here. And if we see, well, we get 200 applications in this bucket and 2 on this other one, then probably this primary one was, the one where more is happening. So there's that. On the other hand, there's partnerships. So we work with 2 types of partners mainly. One is what we call ecosystem partners, and those are what you might have seen in previous cohorts: the Filecoins, Polygons, Polkadot, where we've had dedicated cohorts on their ecosystems, Aptos as well, Hedera as well, where there is an ecosystem. There is usually a blockchain. There is some methods for people to build on that, or in the case of Polkadot and the like, to build their own chains on it. There is technology, and there's the network, and but there's not necessarily that many people building on it, or there are people building on it, but it's a bit fast and loose, right? You have hackathons, you have excited teams, and people have built something, but that's quite a ways off from an actual startup, an actual sustainable business that is, an organization with founders that found each other, with an engineering team, etc. And so we help them to bridge those gaps. On the other hand, we have capital partners. So, for example, in the Latam program, this Morgan Creek Digital, those are usually funds, VCs who are looking to get exposure to early stage Web3 startups, who don't necessarily have the breadth in deal flow and the touch of that very early part of the market that we have, but they do have the willingness and the capital to deploy. Where we then come together and say, look, we're putting together cohorts. The capital partner is bringing in, I don't know, 100k USD per team, or some other allocation of funds, is involved in the investment selection process, and also during mentoring and other parts of the program itself. But they come in as a partner and also work with the startups. Those partners often also have themes that they are focusing on, that they are excited about, and then we take all of those factors in the mix, our view on the market, and we're in the opinion of us, as Outlier Ventures, all the people within this business, see as well, that's where we should focus, and partnership opportunities where teams are building, and then throw them in the big hat, pull out there's all of those factors we combine to selections of, okay, Q3 we're going to do this, Q4 we're going to do that, because we really have multiple cohorts per quarter in the future.
So on that front, like, why did you guys decide to focus on Latin America for this particular cohort?
Yeah, so it's and to explain a bit, the Latam cohort, it is Latin America focused. It's not in person. So it's the entirety of Latin America. Still a pretty big place, but pretty big place with quite some big commonalities. It is very much a developing, emerging market, or group of emerging markets, where we've previously seen that in other places, and also with some individual teams that we worked in with other programs who were from Latin America, where we could really see there's a lot of specific potential here. And it's a continuation of work where we've also established other emerging markets. Like we're also doing a program in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, where in a very different way there's an emerging and growing market. And specifically to Latin America, there's really a combination of things that makes it very interesting, in a different way than, say, the US or Europe, where some things are maybe not as pressing as a possibility as in Latin America. So in Latin America, you have a relatively young demographic. There's high inflation in some countries. There's access to banking, but sometimes not as great as in the West, if you will, in the US or Europe or some areas in Asia. There's really a need towards financial infrastructure, where you see that being successful in Web2 businesses, where there's no crypto or blockchain involved, but also high potential there for Web3 businesses to build those kinds of applications.
For this particular cohort, this accelerator, you've honed in on like 4 different areas, right? 4 different kind of thematic areas of interest in Latin America specifically. It's like gaming, infrastructure, fintech, and then there's one other I'm forgetting. So hopefully you could...
E-commerce.
E-commerce, yes. Yeah. So maybe let's kind of walk through maybe each of those, and maybe just kind of give us your thinking on like why you decided to focus on each of these 4 areas.
Yeah. So for fintech, e-commerce, gaming, and infrastructure, all of those themes are in some way relevant globally, right? They're not unique, that they only exist in Latin America, but they have some very specific relevance here. With fintech, you see that there's always a need for the last mile, right? You might have a payments application, but if it doesn't work with Pix in Brazil, then for how many people is relevant? And you might have a saving and lending protocol, but if it's doesn't fit in the regulation, or it doesn't reach those people on the on ramps in Argentina or in Mexico, you're not going to reach that market. So specifically for those applications, that last mile, that local geography, the specific financial rails is a really important one to take into. So it's payments and remittances, and a use case as old as blockchain. But now that we have the capabilities, now that there are so many established rails on a global level, things like USDC and all the stable coins, and of course many networks where transactions can happen cheaply, and the local end of the leg for remittances, those become far more realistic. Whereas previously it was more a pipe dream. So now we see those people building those things. It's saving and lending, like lending use cases on blockchains. And as that's sort of the base capabilities become a bit more in use and saturated, you get to the other forms that appear when more people and also more wealth has come online, as wealth management and investment with RWAs, real world assets. You also see the it's okay, you're going to bring real world assets online, but which real world assets are there going to be? Well, if it's about real estate in Brazil, well, then you have that specific Latin America angle. So you have the more wider global Web3 themes there, and then more applied towards the Latin American markets. With regard to gaming, the gaming is of course a growing industry again worldwide. But zooming into to Latin America, there's there's also a lot of growth, especially in mobile gaming, and Web3 gaming just offers some unique benefits and capabilities. Being owning your assets, making the things that you win or that you can have in those games being actual real financial assets rather than just numbers on the screen. Looking more towards ownership of identity. There's those examples of gamers having built up years and years of their character, of reputation or whatever, and then for some reason they get cut off of a Web2 platform because a vague explanation with terms and conditions. With Web3 executed well, you own your reputation, right? That can't happen. So there's those things that become relevant in a longer term. You see those play out in gaming as well. And then the infrastructure that underpins all of those things. There's of course the core Web3 use cases which might emerge here as well. And I think one point to mention that I haven't mentioned about the Latin American market, there's an amazing amount of talent here, right? There's so many good universities. Access to English language was, previously not as good. Maybe 2 decades ago, you could say it would be very difficult to go around here in Brazil or Argentina or any of those countries as an English speaker. Now that's getting better. Lots of really good engineers, really smart. Those people, they have great ideas in the Web3 world as well, and we want to enable them to execute those as well, and really, be that bridge towards the wider Web3 world.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's one of the reasons I'm really excited to hear that you guys are doing this program, is because I do feel like there is that kind of this chicken and egg problem here in the region with regards to startups and venture funding, right? Where the startups will say like, well, there's not really anybody to invest in me, so like, why would I want to build this? And then the investors like, well, there's no good projects to invest in, so why should I pay attention to this region? So I think a program like this that kind of splits the difference and meets halfway, I think is really important. And I hope this is successful, and I hope others follow your lead here. And then maybe let's just kind of close out here by talking a bit about the types of startups you're looking to attract as applicants for this, and then maybe also what are the things a startup should consider before joining one of these programs, right? Because obviously, like, maybe this would be a really good fit for a certain profile of startup, maybe not so much for another profile of startup. So what are those things that people need to be considering when deciding like, hey, I should sign up for this?
I'd say the most successful teams, the teams that are the best fit, that we can help the most, that are the most successful throughout our programs. They're usually 2 to 3 co-founders. We have worked with single founders. We have worked with single founders successfully, but we have seen that if there is that balance between maybe more technical person, more commercial person, maybe more domain expert versus outward looking 2 or 3 co-founders is often a really good dynamic. Female founders as well as male founders, by the way. There's this stereotype, especially in this business, but we're really keen on having female founders in our programs as well. With regards to product and state of the product, we want to see some level of implementation. But I think what's most important is to have engineering bandwidth and to be able to build and to continue to build. And to illustrate, like, sometimes we get people in who are like passionate founders, might be even founding team, but they have outsourced all of the development of their tech, and the development company isn't so involved anymore. And you have just the code, you have just the product. When I talk about engineering bandwidth, well, they have zero engineering bandwidth at that moment, and they're very likely going to need some pivot, because they're going to have new insights, right? They're going to see what's relevant and then really leverage it. So when you have the engineering bandwidth, be that through a very productive CTO co-founder, be that through some engineering team of 1, 2, 3 engineers, minding the burn rate. Of course, you're at a stage, you probably don't have a lot of funds, but having some level of engineering bandwidth is a really important one. Then towards like pitching and ideation, like we can help people with getting a smoother pitch, getting the message out better, right? But it is really important that as a founder that you're passionate and that you have a big vision for it, because like we can help you with making that vision realistic, but we cannot, or in a very limited way, help you become more ambitious, right? If it's a very small idea that's likely to stay very small, that is great, but it's not the greatest fit for an accelerator. Then by all means, please do continue to what you do, and it's probably going to make you happier also to have a business that grows 10% every year, than more the startup, bigger vision, bigger dream model, where we as an accelerator can help you shortcut that step from here to here, where there's a big growth idea. And again, we can help you with realizing that, with adjusting that, with being a soundboard for it, but probably not with making you the person that has those kinds of ideas, if you will.
Got it. No, that's super helpful. Yeah, a lot of things to consider there. I guess one last question I had about this Latam accelerator in particular. You're partnering with Morgan Creek Digital, which caught my eye when I saw the news about this. And for those that don't know, I mean, Morgan Creek Digital is led by Mark Yusko, who's one of these. I don't know how to describe him properly in a way that doesn't sound overly flattering, but he's one of kind of like one of these like legendary investors, right? Like, who I think he started taking interest in crypto, 2017, 2018, but he's one of these guys that like you study in business school kind of thing, right? So obviously the fact that you're partnering with Morgan Creek Digital on this particular fund is quite interesting. So I guess whatever context you could provide around like how this particular partnership came to be, and then maybe like what their interest is in this region and in this particular cohort, that would be helpful.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so with Morgan Creek Digital, like they are one of many funds that we speak with and are in contact with, both from a perspective of, well, we have this portfolio, we have teams that are raising, and that might be interesting to them, as also this is what's happening in the world, and this was interesting, and these are from an investment type of investment thesis type of conversation. For them, it's really the case, as I alluded to a bit earlier. Like they are really bullish on Latin America. They have a few investments there that through whatever ways they got in contact with and invested in. This accelerator for them is really a way to in one step, or hopefully in multiple, if we can do a series of these cohorts, get access to a larger amount of qualified deal flow, qualified teams in the region that are building, that we have worked with, that on the one hand we have selected, and on the other hand we as Outlier have worked with in the accelerator for 3 months, and they also have been able to get very direct contact to in their case deploy up to $1 million per cohort spread over these teams, and of course potentially do follow investments as they see fit, where those startups grow through. So yeah, it's for them. It's really this more structured and broader way of access to qualified investment opportunities in the region. And yeah, we're very happy to have them as a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. Well, anyway, Aron, really appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on the show to tell us more about this opportunity, and really exciting what you're doing here. Definitely wish you the best of luck. I encourage all my listeners to apply if you're interested, or send this to somebody who might be interested in applying. Let's try to seize the opportunity and make sure that this lands. So it's a great opportunity for the region, Brazil and elsewhere. So, Aron, where can people go to learn more about the program and apply?
Yeah, so that would be our website, and we have a 30-page thesis specifically on the Latin America program, where we lay out these themes that we've been talking about a bit more specifically. Of course, on the website, there's the application form, where I would encourage people to, if they think, well, this might be for me, just get that application form in. It's not that long. There's a bunch of questions, and we can talk about it, right? If you're in doubt, well, is this really for me? Am I ready for it? Well, I would err on the side of applying rather than not doing it, and we can explore the opportunity together. And there's of course the socials on X and LinkedIn and the like, where we on a continuous basis publish these kinds of thesis and other thoughts on our cohorts, and also our existing portfolio, right? Because like with the 300 plus portfolio, there's always a continuous flow of good news and collaborations between portfolio, which is also really great to see, of course.
Well, Aron, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for coming on the show here, and thanks everyone for listening. And we'll see you next time.